Are you having to move out of your house and you don't want to? Maybe this is a really difficult issue that you're struggling with because of what's going on with the divorce, or maybe you're already divorced and this is having to happen because of financial issues. Um, I want to talk to you about the story of Job in the Bible. It's the oldest book in the Bible. Um, and it just really gave me a lot of inspiration when I was going through this. For me, I actually wanted to get out of my house. It was painful for me to stay in the house. It just had like not, especially because it was a house that, so my ex had been married twice before he married me. So it was a house that he had built with his previous wife. So I like really never felt at home in the house anyway. So I really wanted to leave the house. So for me, it was a little bit different. Maybe for you, you're more of the typical situation where you want to stay in the marital house. I see that a lot, especially with women, because they're the traditional caretakers of kids. They're like the, kind of the matriarch, and the matriarch, the home is really important. So maybe you're a guy and that's the opposite for you. But either way, there's a lot of, usually one spouse has really strong feelings about wanting to stay in the house. And sometimes that just doesn't work. I mean, there's a lot of different financial scenarios that could be happening, but a typical one is just that the mortgage payment is too expensive for one person to afford on their own. A lot of times, like it's the woman who was not the primary breadwinner, so she maybe had a lower paying job, and now she has this expensive house to pay for that really the only way they could afford the house before was based on the income of her husband, her ex-husband now. So now she has to leave the house. And that is devastating to people. Like that is the last thing they want to hear, is that they can't stay in the house anymore. So I just want to talk to you about that and inspire you with this story of Job. So Job didn't get divorced, but he did lose his house. and but his story is just so it's inspirational. I believe it's a true story. Um, Call me crazy if you like. That's all right. I've been called worse. But I actually want to talk about, I want to read the story of what happened after he lost his house. But he was this successful, wealthy man. He had a wife, he had kids, and back then the business to be in was like livestock. So he had thousands of heads of herds of sheep and cattle and camel and you name it. And in one night, he lost everything. He lost his children. He lost his all of his livestock, so all of his money was gone. Um, and he like it was even worse. Like he broke down and had sores all over his body, so he was also physically in pain. And okay, so my situation was obviously not that bad, but I think at the time I thought it was that bad. And maybe you're feeling the same way, just like, oh my gosh, I have just lost everything and now I just want to wallow in my misery. Like that's how I felt. I was and you might be feeling that like that because specifically you're having to leave your home, like what's so important to you and your family. But that period in Job's life where he lost everything was a relatively short time. I think commentaries say that it was about 9 months. So for me, that took a lot longer to like make everything back. I still haven't, but I'm working on it. Uh, so the point is that those are valleys that you go through, that you walk through, you don't stay in. So keep your chin up because you are an overcomer. I usually say that at the end, but it fit right there. So I want to read what happened after all of those terrible, terrible things happened to Job. So it says that the Lord blessed the latter end of Job more than his beginning. more than his beginning. For he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 of donkeys. He also had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and he called the first Jemima, and the second Keziah, and the third Karen. And in all the land there were no women found so fair as the daughters of Job, and their father gave them an inheritance with their brethren. And after this, Job lived 140 years and saw his sons and his sons' sons, even 4 generations. So Job died being old and full of days. Hello, is that not the best story ever? Job had worked to become a wealthy man, so he must have gone through a lot in order to build that up. And all of a sudden, one day, it was gone. And that's how I felt with my divorce. Like all of a sudden, I went from being, having an abundance to like being on the verge of going to a shelter. Like I had nothing. And this happened to Job. He even was physically like bombarded with illnesses, with the sores all over his body. But how wonderful he talks about how he had all those more children. You still have time. I thought, oh, I'm 30 years old, my life is over. I don't have time to make it up. Job was a lot older than that and had time to have 10 more kids. And they not only did he have all those more children, he had his daughters were the fairest in the land. And he grew double the amount of wealth in his business. And he saw the next 4 generations. Obviously, they lived a lot longer then than they do now. But now we have the internet. We can move faster. So we can get it all done in a shorter amount of time. My point is that don't think that that you were dealt a hand that can't be corrected, because there's still time to turn the ship around. You still have time to have a great future, to be blessed doubly. So that house that you're mourning over now, that you're having to move out of, just like Job had lost his house, watch out, because double portion is coming your way. The house that you're going to move into is going to be twice as good as the last one. That is what I say over you and your future. Keep your chin up, because you are an overcomer. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And check out my newsletter. It's on divorceowl.com/opt-in. divorceowl.com/opt-in.